mentioned across the world that is in literature is the Adamorobe deaf community that uses the Adamorobe Sign Language in Ghana. And you will also hear about the Hausa Sign Language or the Hausa Deaf community in Nigeria. People have talked about the Bura Sign Language of the Bura people in Nigeria. Then, if you go back through history, a few of what you can see in literature, you will see that sign languages were cited in Egypt and other countries as early as the 11th centuries. Foster brought deaf education, especially in Nigeria, but rather he introduced deaf education through signing. Now, record has it that at least Nigeria has one school for the deaf before 1957, when Foster was still busying himself with work in Ghana. He spent 3 years and came into Nigeria. The change he brought was the deaf schools that were in existence in some African societies were not using signing system. We're not using the manual system to teach. And it was not out of place. It was happening in Europe. It was happening in America. They were coming to recognize at the time Foster arrived in Nigeria, sign language was still not regarded as a full language. Not until 1960s, when studies broke in the United States and said, man, we have found out that this thing that these people do with their hands is a full language. Why? Because it can take linguistic analysis, just like what you and I are using through our vocal cords. And people were like, no, where are you coming from? Where are you coming from? Don't say that. And people delved into the study, and today, sign languages are now regarded as full-fledged languages. But all these dynamics taking place, Foster was not a linguist, sign language was not really a language, so you would believe that it wasn't a totally bad or wrong thing going on before he came. He only wanted to bring deaf education, but unfortunately, education goes with a language, a communication, right? Which language would he use to communicate? The one he is familiar with, and he introduced the sign language variety that he knew, and the people wholeheartedly took whatever he gave them and started learning in schools. It wasn't difficult for our different governments to begin to adopt that variety of signing into the deaf schools and say, this is sign language for our deaf people. And if I would say it as it really hurts me about Nigeria, that it went to the extent of not even recognizing any other signing variety than what they call American Sign Language. So, would you blame a deaf child that is born today who believes that their language is American Sign Language, even though he is in Africa, and maybe throughout his life, he will not touch America, and he may not know the real content of the language? So, that is the dynamic that is happening. But again, citing Ghana and Adamorobe Sign Language, the change has been a very gradual but very effective one.